I met Caleb at a university mixer when we were both just 22. And honestly, looking back, it felt like a scene scripted for a romantic comedy. He was this earnest, broad-shouldered guy from the Midwest, studying veterinary medicine, who looked at me as if I were the only person in the room. I remember thinking how refreshing it was to meet someone who actually seemed to see me. You know? Not like those other guys in the business program who were just looking for trophies or networking opportunities. Caleb was different. He was genuine. He was loyal. He was the kind of guy who would drive 3 hours in a snowstorm just to bring me soup when I had a cold. What really sealed the deal for me was when I found out he had never even slept with anyone else. He was waiting for the one. Can you believe that? In this day and age? We had been dating for 6 months, and he was that devoted. It was sweet. Maybe a little quaint, a little naive, but sweet. It showed me what kind of man he was, someone who took commitment seriously. Someone safe. My name is Vivian. I am 43 years old now, and for the last 18 years, I have been the envy of every woman in my social circle. I have the career. I am a director of marketing for a global luxury brand. I have the house, a stunning colonial revival in the most exclusive suburb of Connecticut. And I had the husband, Caleb, the successful veterinarian who still looked at me with those puppy dog eyes after nearly 2 decades. We were the golden couple, the team, the standard. Or at least, that is what I let everyone believe. Our life was comfortable. It was stable. Caleb was the rock, and I was the kite. I handled the ambition, the social climbing, the image. He handled the grounding, the emotional support, the unconditional love. It worked. It felt natural. But there was a chapter in our history that I kept firmly closed. A chapter from our mid-20s. After college, we faced the inevitable hurdle. Graduate school. Caleb got into a top veterinary program in California. I was accepted into a prestigious MBA program in London. We talked for hours about it, about our future, about how we would make it work. We decided to do long distance. 2 years, maybe 3 at most. Then we would reunite, get married, and start our real lives. I was actually excited about the independence. If I am being completely honest, I loved Caleb, of course. But there was something appealing about being in London, on my own, without having to check in with someone constantly. The long-distance thing started out fine. We did the video calls, we sent the care packages, but an MBA program is intense. It is competitive. And London? London is a city that breathes temptation. I was making new friends. High-powered, ambitious people. People who understood the cutthroat world of business in a way Caleb, with his animals and his gentle heart, never could. Caleb was struggling with his own workload, thousands of miles away. Our phone calls started to feel like a chore. He would talk about anatomy exams and his lonely apartment. I would talk about mergers and acquisitions and gala dinners. We were speaking different languages. The loneliness crept in around month 4. I am a physical person. I need connection. And Caleb was just a pixelated face on a screen. That is when I started noticing other men. And they noticed me. There were guys in my cohort who were sharp, witty, and aggressive. Men who challenged me intellectually. Men who were there, in the flesh. The first time it happened, it was with a guy named Julian. He was a French exchange student. Charming. Sophisticate. We were studying late. We had a bottle of wine. One thing led to another. Afterward, I felt a pang of guilt. Obviously. But then I rationalized it. Caleb and I were not engaged. Not officially. We were young. We were thousands of miles apart. Was it really fair to expect me to live like a nun for 2 years during the prime of my life? Besides, it was just physical. It was just a release. It did not change how I felt about Caleb. It did not change our future. What Caleb did not know would not hurt him. Once you cross that line once, it becomes easier to cross it again. And, again. Over those 2 years in London, Julian was not the only one. There was a banker I met at a networking event. There was a guy from my strategy class. There was a brief fling with a visiting professor. In total, there were probably 8, maybe 10. I honestly lost count. It wasn't serious. None of them meant anything. They were just experiences. Band-aids for the solitude. Fun. Excitement. I was careful. I was discreet. I never let it interfere with my grades or my scheduled calls with Caleb. When we talked, I was the same loving girlfriend. When he visited me once that first year, I was perfect. I truly believed that I was doing us a favor. By getting my restlessness out of my system, I was ensuring I would be ready to settle down when the time came. And I was right. When I graduated and moved back to the States, I was ready. I was done with the games. I wanted Caleb. I wanted the stability. We got married a year later. It was a fairy tale wedding. Caleb cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. He told everyone in his toast that he was the luckiest man alive because I had waited for him. Because our love had survived the distance. I smiled. I kissed him. And I buried London deep in the recesses of my mind. 18 years went by. We had 2 beautiful children. Leo, who is 17 now, and Sophie, who is 14. We built a life that was the definition of success. Then came the invitation. The 20-year reunion for my MBA cohort in London. I did not want to go. Why would I? I had moved on. I had nothing to prove. But Caleb was insistent. "Vivian, you should go," he said, his eyes lighting up. "You worked so hard for that degree. We should make a trip of it. The kids are at camp. It will be like a second honeymoon." He was so proud of me. So eager to show off his successful wife to my old classmates. I tried to make excuses. Work was busy, the flight was too expensive, but he wouldn't hear of it. He booked the tickets as a surprise. I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach, but I told myself I was being paranoid. It had been 20 years. People forget. People move on. Everyone has secrets. The reunion was held in a ballroom at a swanky hotel in Mayfair. It was exactly as boring as I expected. A bunch of middle-aged people in expensive suits, comparing bonuses and hairline recessions. I was holding a glass of champagne, clutching Caleb's arm, playing the role of the devoted wife perfectly. Caleb was charming everyone, telling stories about his veterinary clinic, looking handsome in his tuxedo. Then, I saw her. Sloane. Sloane had been in my study group. She was one of those women who thrived on chaos, the kind who never really grew up. She was holding a martini, swaying slightly, clearly already 3 drinks in. "Vivian!" she shrieked, waving across the room. She stumbled over, almost spilling her drink on Caleb. "Oh my God, look at you," she gushed. "You haven't aged a day. Is this the famous Caleb?" Caleb smiled, extending his hand. "Guilty as charged." "Wow," Sloane said, looking him up and down. "You are even better looking than the pictures." No wonder Vivian finally settled down. I laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. "It was good to see you, Sloane. We were just going to get some food." But Sloane wasn't done. She leaned in, a conspiratorial grin on her face. "You know, we all took bets on whether you two would make it. Especially after, well, you know." She winked. A heavy, drunken wink. My heart stopped. "Sloane, you're drunk." "I am not," she protested. Then she turned to Caleb. "You are a saint, you know that? Dealing with this one." She poked my shoulder. "Although I guess you had your fun too, right? I mean, Vivian certainly did. Remember that drummer? The one with the tattoos? God, what was his name? Marcus? Or was it the Italian guy? You guys were wild." The air left the immediate vicinity. I froze. I literally could not move. Sloane laughed again, oblivious. "Ah, grad school. The best years, right? Well, lovely to meet you, Caleb." She drifted away into the crowd. I stood there. The champagne glass felt slippery in my hand. I slowly turned my head to look at Caleb. He wasn't looking at Sloane, he was looking at me. His face wasn't angry. It wasn't red. It was completely blank. The smile had vanished, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated confusion that was rapidly morphing into realization. "Vivian?" he said. His voice was very quiet. What was she talking about? I tried to laugh. It came out as a choke. "Oh, you know Sloane. She's crazy. She's mixing me up with someone else. She was always like that." Caleb didn't blink. He just stared at me. His eyes, usually so warm, were suddenly like X-ray machines, scanning my face, searching for a tremor, a lie. "The drummer?" he asked. "The Italian guy?" "Caleb, stop," I said, putting a hand on his arm. "It's nonsense. Let's go. I have a headache." I tried to pull him toward the exit. For a second he didn't move. He felt like a statue. Then, he gently removed my hand from his arm. "Okay," he said, "let's go." The ride back to the hotel was silent. Not a peaceful silence. A suffocating, heavy silence that pressed against my eardrums. I tried to make small talk about the venue, about the food. Caleb stared out the window at the passing London streets. When we got to the room, he didn't start undressing. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked at me. "Did you cheat on me?" He asked it calmly, like he was asking if I had remembered to buy milk. I took a breath. I knew I couldn't deny it completely. Sloane had been too specific. "Caleb." "Honey," I started, sitting next to him but not touching him. It was a confusing time. We were so far apart. I was lonely. "Did you cheat?" "It happened once," I lied. The classic trickle truth. "One time. I was drunk. It meant nothing. It was a mistake. A stupid mistake from 20 years ago." I waited for him to yell, to cry, to ask who it was. But he didn't. He stood up. He walked to the bathroom, changed into his pajamas, and brushed his teeth. Then he walked past me, grabbed a pillow from the bed, and went to the small sofa in the corner of the suite. "Caleb?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What are you doing?" He turned off the lamp. "I'm going to sleep," he said into the darkness. We flew home the next day. Caleb barely spoke 3 words to me the entire flight. He was polite to the flight attendants. He watched movies. He slept. But he acted as if the seat next to him was empty. I thought, give him time. He is shocked. His ego is bruised. He needs to process. But days turned into weeks, and the silence did not lift. It wasn't that he was ignoring me completely. That would have been easier to handle. It was that he was treating me like a coworker he vaguely disliked. He would speak to me only when necessary, regarding the house or the children. "Leo needs a ride to soccer at 5. The plumber is coming on Tuesday. We are out of coffee. No emotion, no eye contact, no terms of endearment." He moved into the guest room down the hall. He stopped eating the dinners I cooked, claiming he had eaten late at the clinic. It was infuriating. I mean, honestly. I was trying. I apologized. I cried. I told him how much I loved him. I cooked his favorite meals. I wore the lingerie he liked. And he looked right through me. I started to get angry. Who did he think he was? I was the mother of his children. I was the woman who had built this life with him. Was he really going to throw a tantrum over a 20-year-old mistake? It felt so childish, so petty. I found myself pacing the kitchen one night while he was reading a book in the living room. "Are you going to punish me forever?" I snapped. He didn't look up from his page. "I'm not punishing you, Vivian." "Yes, you are," I yelled. "You're freezing me out. Over something that happened a lifetime ago. We weren't even married, Caleb. We were on a break, basically." He turned the page. "We were not on a break. We were planning a wedding." "I was young," I screamed. "I made a mistake. Are you perfect? Have you never made a mistake?" He finally looked up. His eyes were cold. "I have made plenty of mistakes, Vivian. But I never betrayed you. I never lay in bed with you, looked you in the eye, and lied to you every single day for 18 years. I didn't lie. Omission is a lie," he said softly. "You let me build a life on a foundation that didn't exist. You let me believe I was special to you, that our loyalty was mutual. You are special to me." He shook his head, a small, sad smile playing on his lips. "No, I was safe. I was the backup plan." Then he went back to his book. The rejection stung more than I cared to admit. I stormed upstairs, slamming the door. If he wanted to play this game, fine. I could play too. I started going out more. I stayed late at the office. I went to happy hours with my team. I posted photos on social media, looking fabulous and happy. "Look at me," I wanted to scream at him. "Look at what you are risking losing." But he didn't care. He didn't even check my Instagram. After a month of this Cold War, I couldn't take it anymore. The tension in the house was palpable. The kids were starting to notice. Leo asked me why Dad was sleeping in the guest room. I lied and said Dad had a bad back and needed the firmer mattress. I insisted on couples therapy. I figured a therapist would be on my side. A professional would understand that the past is the past. They would tell Caleb that holding on to resentment is unhealthy, that he needed to move on for the sake of the family. Caleb agreed, surprisingly. We went to a sleek office downtown. Dr. Evans was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a soft voice. I spent the first 20 minutes explaining the situation. I framed it perfectly. I talked about the pressure of grad school, the loneliness, the youth. I emphasized how amazing our marriage had been since then, how much I regretted that one indiscretion. Dr. Evans nodded sympathetically. She turned to Caleb. Caleb, how does hearing this make you feel? Caleb sat there, hands folded in his lap. He looked tired. It makes me feel, he began, his voice steady, like I am sitting next to a stranger. Because of one mistake? I interjected. Caleb, please. Caleb turned to me. Was it one mistake, Vivian? The room went silent. What do you mean? I asked, my heart hammering. Sloane mentioned a drummer, Caleb said. And an Italian guy. That's two. Was it just two? I looked at Dr. Evans. She was watching me expectantly. Honesty is crucial here, Vivian, she said gently. If you want to rebuild trust, you need to lay everything on the table. The trickling truth will only do more damage. I felt cornered. If I lied now and he found out later, it would be over. But if I told the truth, it wasn't just two, I whispered. Caleb nodded. How many? Does the number matter? I pleaded. To me, it does, he said. I looked down at my hands. My diamond ring sparkled under the office lights. 7, I mumbled. Maybe 8. I heard a sharp intake of breath from Dr. Evans. Caleb didn't make a sound. I looked up. He was staring at the wall. 8, he repeated. Over 2 years. That's 1 every 3 months. While we were talking every night. While I was sending you letters. While I was saving money for this ring. I was lonely, I cried out. It meant nothing. They were just bodies, Caleb. You were the one I loved. Caleb stood up. Caleb? Dr. Evans asked. I'm done, he said. He didn't look angry. He looked empty. I can't do this. Caleb, sit down, I demanded, panic rising in my throat. We are in therapy. We are fixing this. He looked at me then, and the look in his eyes haunts me to this day. It wasn't hate. It was total indifference. There is nothing to fix, he said. The marriage I thought I had never existed. You fell in love with a man who would wait for you. I fell in love with a woman who didn't exist. You played a role, Vivian, and you are a very good actress. But the show is over. He walked out of the office. I sat there, stunned. I looked at Dr. Evans. He's overreacting, right? He's in shock. He'll come back. Dr. Evans closed her notebook. She looked sad. Vivian, betrayal isn't just about the sex. It's about the reality you created. You controlled the narrative of his life for 20 years. You took away his agency to choose who he wanted to be with. That is a very difficult thing to forgive. He didn't come back to the house that night. He went to stay with his brother, Marcus. 2 days later, he came by when the kids were at school to pack a bag. I tried to stop him. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom, blocking his path. You are destroying this family, I screamed. Over your bruised ego. Think about the kids, Caleb. He stopped packing. He looked at me with that same icy calm. I am thinking about the kids. I am thinking that I don't want them to grow up thinking that love means lying to the person closest to you. I will take everything, I threatened. It was a low blow, but I was desperate. If you leave, I will take the house. I will take full custody. I will bleed you dry. He zipped up his suitcase. Do what you have to do, Vivian. He walked past me and out the door. The next few weeks were a nightmare. I had to tell the kids. Or rather, I tried to spin the story to the kids. I sat Leo and Sophie down. I told them Dad and I were having grown-up problems, and that Dad needed some space because he was having a midlife crisis. I tried to paint myself as the victim, the confused wife waiting for her husband to return. It worked for a while. The kids were confused and angry at him. They missed him. But secrets in a small town or a tight-knit family have a way of leaking out. I don't know if he told them. I don't think he did. Caleb isn't like that. But maybe they heard me shouting on the phone to my mother. Maybe they saw the text messages I was sending him, begging and threatening in equal measure. One night at dinner, Leo slammed his fork down. Stop it, Mom, he said. Stop what, sweetie? I asked, pouring myself a glass of wine. My third. Stop acting like Dad is the bad guy. He left us, Leo, I said sharply. He walked out. Because you cheated on him, Leo said. The room went dead silent. Sophie gasped, looking from me to her brother. Who told you that? I hissed. I heard you telling Aunt Sarah on the phone, Leo said, his voice shaking with teenage rage. You admitted it. You cheated on him with a bunch of guys. It was a long time ago, I shouted, slamming my hand on the table. Before you were born. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with us, Leo shouted back. Because you're a liar. You lied to Dad for 20 years. How do we know you aren't lying to us? I am your mother. I don't care. Leo stood up. I want to live with Dad. Me too, Sophie whispered, tears streaming down her face. I looked at them. My children, looking at me with disgust. You ungrateful brats. I spat out before I could stop myself. I gave you everything. This house, your schools, your clothes, and you side with him? He is weak. He can't handle the real world. Leo looked at me with cold eyes that mirrored his father's. He's not weak, Mom. He's honest. You're just fake. They left the table. I sat alone in my beautiful, expensive kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a family dinner that no one had eaten. The divorce was ugly. Not because Caleb fought dirty, but because I did. I fought for every penny. I fought for the house. I fought for custody just to spite him. But in the end, the judge saw through it. And more importantly, the kids spoke up. They were old enough to choose. And they chose him. Caleb got primary custody. I got visitation. I got the house, but I had to buy him out, which drained most of my savings. I sat in the empty house for a few months. It felt like a mausoleum. The silence was deafening. Every corner reminded me of the failure, of the perfect image that had shattered into a million pieces. I eventually sold it. I moved into a luxury penthouse in the city. It is sleek, modern, cold. It has been 2 years now. I see the kids every other weekend. Our relationship is polite, strained. They come over, staring at their phones, answering my questions with one-word answers. They can't wait to leave. And Caleb? I saw him last week. I was dropping Sophie off at his new place. It is a smaller house, a bit run down, with a messy garden. He was standing on the porch, and there was a woman next to him. She wasn't glamorous. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked normal, simple. But Caleb was laughing. He had his arm around her waist, pulling her close. He looked lighter, younger. He looked at her with that same adoration he used to have for me. Except this time, it was real. This time, he knew exactly who he was looking at. I watched them from my Mercedes. A wave of bitterness rose in my throat, tasting like bile. He chose that? Over me? Over the glamour, the success, the history? He chose a boring, simple life with a boring, simple woman. I revved the engine, watching them turn to look at me. I saw Caleb's face harden slightly as he recognized the car. He didn't wave. He just turned back to the woman and kissed her forehead. I drove away, speeding toward the city lights. I told myself I won. I have my freedom. I have my career. I can date whoever I want. I have a 25-year-old personal trainer who comes over on Tuesdays. I go to galas. I travel. I am free from the pretense. Free from the judgment. I parked my car in the underground garage of my building. I took the private elevator up to the 45th floor. I poured a glass of vintage Pinot Noir and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled out beneath me, a grid of glittering lights. It was beautiful. It was expensive. It was mine. I took a sip of wine. It tasted sour. I pulled out my phone. No messages. No missed calls. I opened Instagram. I scrolled through photos of my friends at parties I wasn't invited to. I looked at a picture Leo had posted. It was him, Sophie, Caleb, and the new woman, roasting marshmallows over a fire pit. They looked happy. They looked like a family. I threw the phone onto the velvet sofa. Idiots, I whispered to the empty room. They deserve each other. I stared out at the city, at the cold, unfeeling lights. I am Vivian. I am 45 years old. I am successful. I am beautiful. I am right. I am completely and utterly alone.